Hi computer scientists, Mr. Stafford here, and today I wanted to show you Unit 6, Lesson 10, Solving Problems with Array Lists. It says, in Listmaker.java, implement your algorithm to obtain each individual digit from a number and add it to an array list. So we flow over to Listmaker, and we see that this comment to do, write the method to create and return an array list containing the individual digits from the parameter number. Okay, so we have this array. It's called break up number. We return an array list, and we are fed a number. So what we're trying to do is have a number be put in as a parameter, and then break up each individual digit into its own element in an array list. So the very first thing that we need to do is make an array list. And this is going to be an integer type. And let's just call it digits. It's going to be equal to a new array list and of type integer. Okay. And so here's what I want to do. I'm going to be editing the parameter that we're feeding in, number. And I'm going to take that far right digit and add it to an array list, and then I want to get rid of it. What I'm going to do is a while loop, and while number is greater than 0. Okay, so what I first want to do is grab that far right number, and I'm just going to say int num is going to be equal to number mod 10, because when we mod 10, it's mod by 10, it's going to give us that far right digit. Okay, and then what I want to do is digits dot add at index 0 my digit. And why index 0 is because starting we're going from we're going from right to left when we are grabbing these numbers, but we want our array list to maintain that order, so we need to insert it in the leftmost position each time we add it. So leftmost position is index 0. Okay, and then I'm going to take number and divide equals 10. And what that's going to do is that's going to get rid of that far right digit. Okay, and so what I want to do is return digits. And I think I might get an error here. Let's see. And I do get an error, and it says public static array list, and it can't find the symbol. And the reason it can't find the symbol is I have yet to import my array list in Listmaker. So what I'm going to do is import java.util. And I like to do star dot star and then semicolon. Okay, we'll run this. And we'll see what error I'm getting now. And it can't find digit. Oh, that's because I've called it num instead of digit. So I'm going to clear that and run this. And one more error. Oh, I misspelled digits for my array list when I first created it. So digits, digits, okay. Okay, enter a number to quit, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I see that it is added in my array list, and I'm going to hit 0. Okay, go ahead and click finish and then flow on. On our third level, let me see if I can do this. It says the sentiment value.txt file is structured similarly to parts of speech. So we played with parts of speech before where we have a word and then it's part of speech after a colon. But if we take a look at a sentiment value, let's go down to the fifth one, Aaron, and then we have a comma, and then negative 0.32, or abandon, and we have a comma, and then a negative 0.09. So we see that they're structured similarly. You have a word, and then this comma, and then its sentiment value after the comma. Okay, it says in this file the word is listed followed by a comma, then the sentiment value. Then it asks us to go to inlit process, inlit processor, write the find sentiment value method to find and return the sentiment value for the parameter word to find. Okay, so we're going to create a method. In the parameter, we're going to feed it a word, and then we want to spit out the sentiment value, which is that double. Okay. So number one, it says it should return a double for the sentiment value. 2 says the substring method is used to obtain substrings based on the location of the comma, and the word comes before the comma. The word comes before the comma, and the sentiment value comes after the comma. Okay, and the substring containing the sentiment value needs to be parsed to a double using double.parse double. Okay, very good. So I'm going to copy this method header and flow down to just before the toString. Okay, so back up to the instructions. It says that it needs to return a double. So I'm going to do double ret equals 0 for now, because ret is what I want to return. And the substring method is used to obtain substrings based on the location of the comma. Okay, so we're going to be using the substring method. But also what I need to do is kind of base this off of finding parts of speech. So what I'm going to do is steal some of this from up above. We wrote find parts of speech from before. I need an array list. And this is, instead of word parts, let's call it sentiment list. Okay. Because we're trying to find the sentiment value. And instead of parts of speech, our txt file is going to be sentiment values. Okay. Okay. So now here's what we need to do. We need to loop through this sentiment list, array list, to find the parameter word defined that's getting fed in as that parameter. So let's do for int I equals 0. I is going to be less than sentiment list dot size I plus plus. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to look at each individual word, and I'm going to and eventually determine if that is the word to find. So what I want to do is make a string and call it current word, and that's going to equal sentiment list dot get I. Okay, sentiment list dot get I. Okay, now on to and current word at this point also includes that sentiment value. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rename this because it's what I've actually gotten from the sentiment list is the word, the comma, and that value. So I'm going to call this current entry. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want to find the index of that comma. So int comma index is going to be equal to current entry dot index of, and then find that comma. Okay, and why I want to find that comma is I want to grab the current word. Okay, so I changed that first string from current entry, or from current word to current entry. So now I'm going to make a string and call it current word. It's going to be equal to current entry dot substring from the beginning, and then I want to cut off the comma, which I have that index held at comma index. Okay, very good. So now I have current word and current word. I want to determine if the current word that I'm looking at when I'm looping through this list is equal to the parameter that's called word defined. So I'm going to say if current word dot equals, again, dot equals is how we compare strings, or is how we determine if two strings are the same. Current words dot equals word to find. And if that's a true statement, that ret, my double, what I want to return, I want to return that sentiment value. So I need to set it equal to the value that came after the comma. Now, step number 4, again, I read this kind of quick, but it says the substring containing the sentiment value needs to be parsed to a double using double.parseInt. Okay, so I'm going to do ret equals double.parse. Oh, sorry, I think I said parseInt. I meant parse double. Double.parse double. And what we're parsing is that sentiment value that comes to the right of the comma. So we can find that in our current entry from up above. This was our current entry. Okay, our current entry is everything. The word, the comma, and the that sentiment value. So current entry dot substring. And I want to take the index just after the comma, okay, because I don't want to grab the comma. So I'm going to do substring comma index plus 1. Okay. Make sure I'm out of my for loop, but still in my method. Okay. So ret at this point should be holding on to that sentiment value, or it's going to be 0. And 0 is going to mean, well, a couple of things. I suppose there could be a sentiment value of 0, but also there could be a sentiment value of, so a sentiment value could be 0, but also if I don't find it, ret is initialized as 0. So anyway, I want to return ret. Okay, let's test this out. It says in my console. So I'm going to run this just to make sure I don't have any errors right now. Okay, I don't have any errors. This was from a couple of lessons previous. It says in my console.java, test the find sentiment value. Okay, so we need to test that out. I have got an array list called story parts. So I've already got my story parts as an array list, and I want to do this. I'm going to try out actually I think that L is that lit analyzer that I want to play with. So I'm going to do that. L is the lit analyzer object because I have that method that we just wrote, the find sentiment value, is in lit analyzer. Sorry, is in lit processor. Okay, and let me double check this. lit analyzer extends lit processor. Okay, we're good there. So what I want to do is in my console, I'm going to print it out. So system.out.println. And then let's do this sentiment value of, and then I want to go back to my sentiment values, and let's do ArrayRon first. It should be negative 0.32 of ArrayRon. Okay, and then I'm going to do this L dot find sentiment value and feed it ArrayRon. Okay. And then to make this pretty, I'm going to do a new line character. Okay, clearing the console. And sentiment value of ArrayRon is negative 0.32. Okay, that checks out. And I'm actually curious, we have a couple of like dates, like 1960s. I guess the 1960s have a positive sentiment value along with the 1990s. So as an 80s kid, I kind of feel bad that it's a negative sentiment value, but that's okay. Let's try 1960s. I'm going to go back to my console and I'm going to feed it. You know what? I'm going to do two printouts. So this says 1960s and this says 1960s. Clear the console, run this. Just doing a couple of checks. Okay, very good. It seems to be working out. So I'm going to go ahead and tick finish. And level number 4 says, let's find the overall sentiment value of a story. Okay, so we found like every single part of speech from before. Now we want to find the overall sentiment value in a story. And that says in lit analyzer, write the analyze sentiment method to calculate and return the average sentiment. So we're finding an average here, which means we need to add up every single sentiment value from the words in a story and then divide it by how many words are in that story, okay? Of all the words in the story. So I'm going to copy that method's signature and flow down to my, just above my toString. Okay, and it says this method functions similarly to the analyze parts of speech. And so analyze parts of speech was from up above. And it should return a double for the average sentiment value. Okay, so I'm going to make a double right now. So I'm going to do double av and just call it 0. And then what I want to do is count a couple of things. I want to count or add up the total sentiment. So I'm going to do double total sentiment. And then I want to so what do I want to do? I want to grab the sentiment from a single word from the story and then get rid of that word. Yeah. And then I want to get rid of that word because I've already found that sentiment. And then, so I'm going to update that story every single time I find a sentiment value for a specific word. And what I mean by update is I'm going to throw away a word. So my string is going to be called remaining text. And this is going to be called lit text because that is our instance variable called lit text, which is being read in from that story. Okay, that's good. So this is kind of similar to our first level where we were finding each digit of a number, where we grabbed the last digit and then we were getting rid of that digit. So while remaining text dot index of a space is greater than 0. Okay, if I don't have any more spaces, that means I have grabbed every single word in the story. Because if we look at this story, we have spaces between the words, which is, natural language processing for English. We have spaces between our words. And when I get to the end of the story, I don't have any more spaces. And so that's how I'm going to know that I'm at the end of the story. Okay. So what I want to do when I find when I look at a single word is separated by those spaces. So I'm going to do int space index is going to be equal to remaining text dot index of, and then a space. Okay. And then I'm going to do string current word is going to be equal to remaining text dot substring 0, space index. Okay. So I got my space index, which tells me the index of the space, and then the current word that I'm looking at, I'm taking it from the remaining text and using substring to grab it from index 0 and then cutting off that space index because I don't want to grab that space. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to use the method that we wrote before to find the sentiment value, okay? And I have this total sentiment and add it to the total sentiment. So what I'm going to do is total sentiment plus equals find sentiment value and feed it the current word. Okay, and that find sentiment value, again, that's what we wrote in lit processor, that find sentiment value. And since lit analyzer extends lit processor, I can just call that method, okay, because we're extending lit processor. Okay, and then I want to, what do I want to do? Total sentiment. Total sentiment, remaining text, av. I'm going to add another variable here. What I was going to do is I was going to add num words because I need to count how many words that I have total. So this is going to be int num words, and at the beginning it's going to be 0, but then I'm going to do num words plus plus. Oops, spell it right. Num words plus plus. Okay, so I'm adding the total number of words, and then what I want to do is get rid of that word that I just got the sentiment value from. So what I'm going to do is remaining, oh, and I misspelled remaining text up here on line 54, string remaining text. So I need to do remaining text. It's now going to equal remaining text dot substring, and then I'm going to do space index. Okay, but I don't want to grab the space, so I need to do space index plus 1. Okay, and then what I think that I have is everything that I need. Total sentiment is going to be added up. I've got the total number of words. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set average equal to total sentiment divided by our num words. And we want to return av. Okay, let's run this and see how we're doing. Oh, index of, I missed a parenthesis there. Let's see if I have all my parentheses. I think I got too many. Okay, clear that, and I will run this. Okay, very good. So I see that my sentiments were tested from before, but now it says in myconsole.java, I need to test this out. So let's test it. I'm going to add a new line character there, and I'm going to do system.out.println and average sentiment of the story. Okay, so then I'm going to do L, which is that lit analyzer, L dot analyze sentiment, which is what we just wrote, and clear the console and run it again. And our average sentiment for the story is 0.040757575575 repeating. So that to me looks pretty good. So that is it for Unit 6, Lesson 10.